Now let's talk about the JavaScript code that we wrote right here. We're going to have our steps in mind on how the fetch function works. So here we go. We start by declaring some variables. The first one is for name, where we're going to get the information that our client places on the input, where it says enter your name. We're going to get its value by accessing the document element and selecting the specific ID that we established, that will be name. That is one of the variables that we're going to use. Okay, so right now also you will be able to see that we're implementing a main function that is called bring country, where we're going to get the country information, or what our API or our nationalized API will provide to us. How does it work? That's what we're going to explain. First thing is the API route. As you may remember, this is the route that is provided in the documentation. In the example, it has the name Michael, but as we want our user to use its own name, we're going to let this equal sign with no name on its side, and we're going to use this variable that we name places name, where the customer enters its information with a string. We're going to concatenate this information. So what will happen right there is that as we concatenate the information, it will say name equals to our variable right here, and that is the information that will be the main argument, that, as you remember, will be the path provided into our fetch function. This is important. Remember that our fetch function right now is receiving a request or to get information. That's what we want to do right now. So for that reason, we're also implementing the part that is asynchronous. As you can see right here, our function is declared as asynchronous, and it is waiting until our fetch function retrieves or charges or loads the information or the stream of data. Then we are also awaiting for a response that is again that stream of data that will be placed as a promise. So the best example is, I promise you that I will do something, and you can continue doing your stuff. Just believe in my promise. So then we're just formatting our response into JSON, which is the way we want to represent our data. And we're calling this a variable as a JSON promise. We want to see the information in JSON. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to display this complete part again in the browser, so you will be able to see how the information is presented before we continue to the next part of the code. Okay, so now we're on our browser. We did the experiment with a name right here. We place the data, and we are evaluating the functions, or in this case the variables that will be the previously explained on the code, so you will be able to see what information we are retrieving from. So first thing is a complete API route variable. You will remember from the code that this was divided into two variables, one called API route, which goes on till name equal sign. That is provided by the documentation of nationalized API. And the experiment that we wanted to do right here is we wanted to use our own names, or the user information. So the next variable, one in this case, is the variable name under name. So that's where we concatenated those strings, and you will see right there the way it is displayed is like doing the following. This is the information that is provided via JSON, and this goes itself from the nationalized API. But as we use the fetch function, we're going to receive a stream of data that itself will contain the information that we want, but also will contain information that we don't want. So we have to organize that information. So remember that this was received as a promise. So here is all the information. Here are the headers. Remember that the fetch function also talk about this. We're not going to talk about specifically about this information right now, but take it into account. Here is the status of our promise, and a lot of information that itself will not represent at the moment what we really want. That is the reason why you will remember that our response, we filtered that result, so we parsed that result into JSON, which is the way our information is presented right here. So you will see that in the variable JSON promise, here is the information that we wanted to receive. So we have this object that contains the country and country information with the country ID itself and the probability, the corresponding probability. That was everything that we were researching for, and itself right here is like we're using the API. So right now we need to organize that information in order to present it, and that is the next part of the code that I want to explain.